What's up guys, John here from Blind Man Walking, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make bread completely blind. So I'm going to start off by going over what I have on the counter in front of me for my blind viewers. I have a bread pan, just a metal rectangle bread pan. I have some butter right here. Okay, I have some brown sugar. Yeast, very important. A spoon, measuring cup, flour. Now, all these ingredients will make a basic loaf of bread. You can be creative and add a bunch of other dry stuff if you want, but for today, I'm just going to show you guys how to make a plain loaf of bread. I've been making bread for a couple of years now. A friend showed me how to do it, and I totally love it. I can't remember the last time I actually bought bread. So let's get started. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my spoon and I'm going to carve off a generous chunk of butter. Now, before you start cooking, baking, make sure your hands are clean. I didn't show myself doing that, but my hands are clean. I have washed my hands. So I have a pretty good chunk of butter here. I'm gonna put it in the bread pan. And I'm going to get the spoon out of the way. So what I'm going to do is just rub the butter all over the bread pan. Put this camera forward a little bit so you guys can see a little better. So you do this to make sure that when your bread is done, it doesn't stick. If you have ever forgotten to grease your bread pan before putting it in the oven, you will learn a very important lesson, and you'll have to buy a new bread pan because the bread will cook to the bread pan and it will be destroyed. So I'm just making sure to cover all the sides of the bread pan and the bottom of the bread pan with a good dose of butter. I might actually have some leftover butter here. And I like to do this near the sink because I can just chuck things in the sink and clean up after. So we're not going to use all this butter because I took a little bit too much. So we're going to just do what I said, and we're just going to drop it in the sink. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my spoon here, and I'm going to grab a little bit of flour. Oh, there's already a measuring cup in here. Okay, we're gonna get rid of that. Unscripted video. Okay, we take a spoonful of flour, put it in the bread container, in the bread pan. Move the top of it. So now I'm just going to tip the bread pan upside down, sideways, lengthwise. All I'm doing right now is trying to coat the pan with flour. So there's flour and butter in here. Again, this is just to make sure that the pan is nice and smooth, so when I tip it upside down, when the bread comes out of the oven, it'll just fall out of the oven. The bread pan. Okay, we're gonna set that aside. Dry our hands. And grab a mixing bowl because I forgot to grab a mixing bowl. Okay, unscripted video. I gotta go find my mixing bowl. BRB. Okay, we're back. Crisis averted. We found the mixing bowl. Not the one I want. I don't know where my actual favorite mixing bowl is. It's kind of strange. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is got quick quick rise yeast. Say that 10 times fast. I'm going to add a tablespoon. Boom. Now I'm going to take my bag of brown sugar and I'm just going to add, I don't know, a good amount. I'm just eyeballing it, pun intended. There we go. I'm gonna guess that's just over a tablespoon. I don't know. It's enough. And now I'm going to get a glass from my cupboard. So I have 1 tablespoon of yeast, an unknown amount of brown sugar. So now I'm going to add water. So the trick here is to use lukewarm water. If it's too cold, it won't interact with the yeast well. If it's too warm, it won't interact with the yeast well. So it's about right. So I'm gonna make a pretty big loaf, so I'm gonna use, that's actually a little bit too hot. Let's try this. Still too hot. Okay. Here we go. I'm gonna use 1 glass. I'm gonna use a little more water than that. Okay, so we have, I don't know what the equivalent amount of water for, so if you haven't guessed by now, I eyeball a lot of this. I've done this long enough to the point where I just eyeball my ingredients and it works for me. So I'm going to dry my hands off. So I'm gonna get a fork and I'm gonna mix this together. So so the yeast, the brown sugar, and water. So you want to mix it until the sugar is dissolved. Now here's where I wish I had my own mixing bowl. I honestly don't know where it is, which is kind of scary. Okay, so here's what it looks like right now. Okay, so that's the prep work. That's the main prep work. So now we want to start adding flour. So rule of thumb, unless you're me and then all rules go out the window, is I believe it's, I don't even know why I'm going to tell you this because I don't even know if it's accurate. So I'm not even going to bother telling you. I just eyeball it. Let's just go with that. I always begin with at least 3 cups of flour. So we're adding flour to the bowl that has the sugar, yeast, and water. I'm actually going to add a little bit more than 3 cups because I know I'm going to have to anyway. We're going to be proactive. Okay, so there's 4 cups of flour in there. I'm going to take my fork and I'm going to start to mix. So as the flour gets absorbed, as the water absorbs the flour, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker to the point where it is impossible to stir. You want to make sure there's enough flour in here for you to begin, so when you knead it with your hands, the dough doesn't stick to you. It's easy to play with. Gonna test the consistency. Okay, so this is pretty consistent. I'm just gonna put a little flour on my hands so it's easy for me to knead the dough. Okay, so I'm gonna get this fork out of here. So, because this bowl is not big enough, I can't really flatten this down the way I would normally if I had my own bowl, which again, I don't know where it is. So you're just basically rolling and flattening, flipping over and flattening. You just want to get out as much of the moisture as you can, while picking up as much flour from the bottom and the sides as you can. Okay, I'm going to locate my bread pan, put that there. So now I'm gonna knead the dough. You wanna make a nice little ball with your dough. Perfect, okay. So I'm gonna put this in the bread pan. Like this. And I'll show you guys in a bit the bread pan, because over time, over the next 20-30 minutes, this bread will begin to rise. How long it takes to rise depends on how much flour you put in, how much yeast you put in. Generally for me, it takes about an hour until it's risen to the point where I want to bake it. Okay, so BRB. Getting there, getting there. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay guys, we're about 48 minutes in. As you can see, the dough has risen to the point where I feel comfortable to say that it is good to go. So just finishing preheating my oven to 370, and I'm gonna put this in for roughly 40 minutes, at which point my house is gonna smell like a French bakery. Freaking unbelievable. Nothing better than a house that smells like homemade fresh bread. It's funny, I'll be outside in the yard, and when I'm baking bread, I can smell the bread baking from outside. So I'm sure my neighbors can smell it too. I hope they can. And I hope they're like, where is that awesome smell coming from? So as I said, this is just plain bread. Sometimes I make raisin bread, or I'll put walnuts in. I haven't tried chocolate chips yet, which is kind of surprising because I am a chocolate addict. However, maybe that'll be my next experiment. So, yeah, so I'm going to bring the pan over here, open up our oven, slide her in. Oh, okay. Unscripted, here we go again. So, my roommate or somebody else who has been in here over the last couple of days moved a tray around. Not a tray, one of the grills. Yeah, I guess that's a tray. It's not where I want it. We're gonna change that. Okay, there we go. So, put this in. Rack is the term I'm looking for. Rack. Okay, in you go. Perfect, so I'll see you guys in 40 minutes. Any second now, this timer is gonna go off and we're gonna have fresh bread. Yeah. There we go. Hey guys, so 40 minutes, come and gone. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take the bread pan out of the oven, flip it upside down, and tip the bread loaf of bread onto a tray. Put the pan in the sink, take off the oven mitts, flip it over. Guys, let me turn the camera down a little bit so you guys can see. This is the most amazing smelling loaf of bread in the world right now. Again, I can't remember the last time I bought bread because I just make it. Because there's no preservatives, I didn't add salt, so this will stay good for maybe 2 days before it starts to go hard. Luckily for me, I eat bread often. My roommates will probably have some of this as well. Yeah, so that is how a blind person bakes bread. If you guys like this content, let me know and I'll make more baking videos. I'm not as good at baking other things as I am as this, but I like to try because some of my experiments turn out and some of them do not. Either way, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Cheers.